Welcome back, listeners. It's amazing to have you come back in and join me with Learning from Friends, as I'm your tour guide, Cade Curtis. Today, just to give a little disclaimer before we go into it, we're going to focus on two main topics today. I have a lovely friend, Ashely, that's here with me, that we're going to talk about music and her journey within the kind of the music industry, as I'm calling for her on this. I'm calling her out on it. She's in the music industry. She may not admit it, but she is. And also we're going to talk about a very important topic in both of our lives is mental illness. We both have issues that we suffer through throughout our life, and we're going to talk about them. And I find that to be very important in general because a lot of the times we bottle it up. We don't really get into it too much. And so we're going to open up a little bit about that, and we're going to talk about being proactive and also some tips and ideas that have helped us so far along that way. So Ashely, thank you for joining me this evening.
Hi, Cade. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Like it's amazing. This is really super cool. You're going to be episode number 4. Like episode number 4 coming in early. Yeah, it's super awesome with it. So Ashely, this podcast group has no clue. Most of them, some of them probably know who you are. But imagine that you are talking to somebody in another country or another state. How would you describe yourself? Give me a background. Give me like a little synopsis of like your Wikipedia page here.
Okay. Well, my name is Ashely. Hello. I guess I'm in the music industry.
You are.
I try and keep a low profile on that sort of thing just because one thing I always say to people who want to pursue the music industry is you have to kind of understand the life that you want to have. So I keep a pretty mellow life. I live up here in the North Georgia mountains. I absolutely love it. But yeah, my name is Ashely. I'm in my mid-30s. I'm married to one of your wonderful friends.
Yes, we go back pretty far.
Just a little bit. And I have 3 cats that I love most of the time. And I'm just an incredibly not great friend all the time because I'm so busy working. But other than that, yeah.
And as a warning, we're going to probably go off the rails like our previous episode, Joe and I did. It's just a matter of time and how long it kind of lasts with us. So bear with us as, we kind of get off track and then we'll steer it back in and that reigns forward. That's just our nature. We're very similar in personalities. So sometimes that's a clash, but sometimes that's a very nice thing depending upon the moment in time.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're one of the few people that can be like, Ashely, you're not being a super awesome person. I'm like, well, Cade, you don't look like an awesome person right now either.
But we mean it in the nicest of ways.
No, we do.
It's a compliment at times for it, and that's a good thing for us. So let's go back here. Man, how long have we, I'm trying to think, how long have we known each other here?
I think I briefly met you in middle school, but we didn't know each other.
I don't remember middle school. I don't remember middle school at all with you on that. I remember high school.
High school is the main one. I had this lovely, lovely friend that I had been friends with for years. First name Daniel. You know him well. And Daniel and I became like mother and father.
You were my senior parents.
Yeah.
Is a true statement.
To a bunch of incoming sophomores and freshmen and stuff. And we just decided you guys were our babies. We were going to take care of you. And the insanity ensued. And I was like, okay, well, what happened that ended up being the conclusion.
Yeah, I remember distinctly, just my first kind of memory coming back in was band camp coming through. My freshman year was your senior year.
Yeah.
As you were going out, so that was Paul Simon show.
No.
Was that? No, that was Paul Simon.
That was Pirates.
Pirates was my freshman year. Okay.
I don't know if it was your freshman or sophomore year. I may have met you my junior year, your freshman year.
It may have been junior.
And we knew each other for a couple years because the show that I did with you guys was the Pirates of the Caribbean show.
And that was the second year that was because Paul Simon was my first. But I remember meeting you in the band room then after band camp because it must have been you were hanging out with the drummers and the drama people, and we were still early in the school year.
Yeah,
in that sense for it. And you knew my sister
I did.
And through chorus. And so that's kind of where you sort of knew me already at that point for it. And you knew my older brother too, briefly.
Yes.
For a little while. And so that's, yeah, I remember like my freshman year being very confused, a little lost, kind of going through. And you and Daniel had already picked me up and was already talking with me through band camp. He helped me out a ton. And so you just kind of popped in the picture.
Yeah.
That kind of way for it. And you were my senior parent kind of deal.
Yeah. It was through, again, the theater and through music that we ended up being friends. And it was one of those traditions that every morning before we were forced to go our separate ways, all of us would hang out in a similar location between the main school and the band room.
Until the band room was open, then we all just filed in.
Yeah. And then I would go somewhere else. I don't know where I would go. But we
all kind of part different ways at different points in times.
But it was one of those things that we just ended up running in similar circles. And one of the first things I remember is just laughing because I don't even remember what you did. But it was you and G.
G is Garrison, who will be a podcast member in the next couple of weeks as well. So small little brief drop-ins here. We call him G. G Money sometimes.
Yes. Is meaning you and G. And you guys did something stupid.
We're awkward kids, so it's very easily that it could have been anything.
And I just remember being like, "Are you okay? Or are you just a head case?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm just a head case." And from that on, I knew we were going to get along because we both have a similar humor.
Yeah, and honesty goes a long way. And if you're just like straightforward with it, yeah, I'm just a nutcase. You know,
yeah.
We come by it honestly in that weird sense to it. That is definitely for sure to it. And so that's going to lead way into my next question with what is your friendship kind of meant? What has our friendship meant to each other over these? Okay, let's do some math here. 15, 16, 17, 18, probably 18 years now.
Yeah.
Like probably because I've been about 13 at that time. I'm 32 now. So that would put us, about.
Don't do that. They're going to figure out how old I am.
You said you're in your 30s. You know, it's okay. But yeah, so it's probably about 18 years.
Yeah.
And your husband and I go back 27 years.
Oh,
yeah.
Goodness.
Thinking about that there. Boom.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Insanity. So again, you and I are incredibly similar. When we are friends with people, we're friends with them forever. It doesn't matter if I've seen you yesterday or it's been like 10 years since I've seen you. I'll say hello. I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, how are you doing?" But with you and me, we always just ended up popping back together. Maybe
3-5 years at a time, and you never kind of know.
It was really crazy. And, especially when we both graduated university and we were going overseas.
Oh, yeah. That was
around
a big one.
Similar times. And I have no idea how we stayed in communication all these years, but it was kind of a fantastic way of having someone that pops back into your life and you're like, "Hey, Ashely, you want to go to this concert?" And I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah, I think that was one of the times that we got back together was, I remember my senior year, we had a kind of a group started, a really core group that's starting to go in place, the Night Crawlers, as we like to call ourselves with it. We were, after graduate high school, we were still running strong. Like the strongest we were ever at was freshman year in high school. Freshman year in college, whenever still kind of core group. And I think there was a concert that Corey, my brother, wanted to go to. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Hey, like posted it up somewhere." And you said, "Can I go?" And that's kind of that connection back in some form or fashion. Or you heard about it and we realized that we were both going to that same concert. There was some weird connection with it. And after that, we started hanging out again. And that is when you are lucky and you're welcome that I connected you in with your husband, now husband at that time. Or what was it for a while? It was life partner or connected partner? What did you guys...
We were just live-in partners. We met through a gathering of friends.
You're welcome.
And I remember before I met him, I always heard about this crazy friend you guys had. And I'm like, this guy...
Which one? Do we have all those are a little crazy?
Yeah, but this is the one where he would break his arm in a shopping cart that was pulled behind a truck.
There's a non-disclosure agreement on that conversation, so I'm
okay.
gonna have to cut you off there on that conversation for another day. That's breaking storylines.
Okay, sorry. But I always heard about this dude that would always injure himself, and he just didn't make smart moves. And I'm like, this guy sounds like a moron. I never want to meet him.
But he was really cute. Like, that's the thing. He is super cute.
He was really cute. As soon as I saw him, I knew I was in trouble, and I was like, dang it, Bobby. Like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Good old King of the Hill there reference. Love it. You know, going back in there. Good old King of the Hill.
I mean, I was born in Texas, you know, gotta give it up a little bit. But I knew that I was in trouble from then on, and I literally I snuck out of the party because I didn't.
Oh yeah, before I left for Ireland,
Yeah.
you left the party, snuck out a little early on that. I remember
Because
this.
I was actually G. I was like, you gotta get me out of here. You gotta get me out of here. And G was like, why? You don't want to hang out with her? And I'm like, no, get me out.
But you can't leave a good Cade Curtis party. You just, at the end of the day, this was a very like immense, amazing moment. We had a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Bias, first episode, that guy planned out one of the best send-off parties that you can imagine. It was amazing.
It was amazing. I had so much fun. And I just remember being separated in teams, and we were all...
There was 4 teams. It was set up like a Legends of the Hidden Temple style.
Yeah. And like the tomfoolery ensued, and...
That's our relationship right there, tomfoolery. Like, that is the summary of our relationship here, for sure.
Yeah. But I just remember having such a good time, and it was so sad for it to, you know, end. But I had to get out of there because I was like, this guy is really cute, and I do not need to be anywhere near this.
And then now you're married to him.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Well,
I'm going to say that like 18 times.
You guys did trick me, though, because a couple weeks after, G was like, Ashely, you know, it's your spring break. You should come to Athens.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was gone by this point.
Yeah, you were gone, and stay with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to. And I drove up with Z. And the thing is, Z knew that I'd live with you guys.
Another guest eventually, and then in a little while.
And he didn't tell me. Garrison didn't tell me. And they all set me up to fail.
You're welcome.
And when I realized he lived in the same apartment that, like, you guys all had shared.
I didn't live there at that point.
Well, no, you were in Ireland, but you did.
Yeah, eventually.
But nobody told me. And so when I realized he wasn't a neighbor, he actually lived there, I was like, oh, I'm so, like, no. It was so mean. And when the guys when I figured it out, the guys were like, ha 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 ha.
That's about normal. We're kind of like a weird mixture of like guilt trip / trick into getting what we kind of need. It's a weird manipulation process, but we do it with all the kindness of intentions whenever this kind of happens. And really, when you came over to like visit, you never really kind of left, except for like that period of time where you were in Scotland, then you were back for a little while, then you were back in Scotland, and then you moved back. Kind of that range, that weird back and forth phase there. But you never really left after that.
No. And literally, you guys introduced me to my now husband. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think this is number like 15 times. You should count on listeners. You should count throughout the entire episode how many times I say thank you, or I mean you're welcome, and then like put it in the comments below. I'm just curious.
If this was a drinking game, they'd get tanked so fast.
Yeah, this is a true statement. It would be pretty rough.
It really would.
We'll just say for if it is, you're welcome. Just to add one more in.
Oh no. No, I met him, and literally within 5 months, I knew that I was leaving.
Where were you leaving to go to?
I was leaving to go. I was graduating from college, and I was already signed up to go to Scotland for missionary work. And we had sat down and decided, okay, well, I just met you, but I'm leaving. And I've always felt a strong sense of connection to, I'm so lucky to have the opportunities that I have. And I'm not going to pause my life just because I fall in love.
Hey, it happens to the best of us.
Dude, so
But it worked out.
It did.
You're welcome. 17, 18, I don't know.
I mean, if I had something to throw at you right now, I might just do.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you.
But we literally decided that we were going to move in like 5 months after knowing each other, which is I'm an extreme person, so it made sense. And I figured that we were either going to kill each other by the end of the summer, or, he would be like the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. And dang it, if it wasn't the former.
And that for sure is a major kind of component of our relationships here, of how we help each other in moving forward. Because of both as you and I suffer from some of our mental illnesses that we deal with on a daily basis, we've been able to really help each other and kind of be a sounding board, and also be kind of a guiding light of saying, hey, look, I've been able to do this. You can do this too. And that kind of pushing forward with life in general. It
was just a beautiful moment within the friendship of our group. It was almost like you've always been the leader of our pack, in my opinion.
Thank you.
But it was kind of one of those things, as you guys kind of looked at me and said, Ashely, I'm pretty sure that was love at first sight, and you deserve that kind of happiness. And I was when I met my now husband, I was in a point of like, I don't think I deserved that kind of happiness. And I had to like make my own amends of things that, were not my fault at the time, but it didn't stop me from blaming myself. And when you guys came back into the picture for me, it was like you saw me and you saw what internal struggles I had, more so than people that I would spend every day with.
Yeah, because the thing about our group is we genuinely care for each other. At a gentle drop of a hat, if anybody calls us at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and goes, hey, I need $500, we're like, okay, first, where do you need me to meet you at? And then like after we get there, we ask the question of, after you hand it over, why do you need $500? But I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. But it's also that it's a family. That's the thing. Like the friends are the family you choose. That's 100% true on that. And I'm starting to tear up a little bit. I can see a little, like 1 or 2 tears kind of coming down your side. Or is that just
no, I'm not gonna cry. I'm good.
I will. I'm a crier. I get a little emotional. I think that's part of just who I am as a person. And my mother definitely gets kind of passed that on to me.
You have such an awesome mom.
Dude, I love my mom too. I love my mom. I love my family. Like I love my friend family. I love my blood family. Yeah. I love my wife and like all this stuff to it. It's like she's a blessing. Like, I don't know how she puts that with me. Let's be honest here.
I will say the first time I ever met your wife, Katie, I was like, well, this is just perfect. And I liked her immediately. And I'm a very protective person to my friends, more so than even to myself sometimes. And so anytime you guys brought a new girl in, I'd keep my distance and I'd be like, okay, we'll see how this one plays out.
Judging from a distance. You and your judging eyes.
Super, super judging. But the second I met Katie, I was like, yes, this is perfect. She is amazing. I need to protect her from everything that these guys are going to put her through.
It's a true statement. We'll go into one day, hopefully my wife will agree to come on to the podcast and we can tell a little bit about that story in that range. We'll see if she's willing to do it. But this is one of those months we went off the rails a little bit here. We're 20 minutes into this podcast. It's hilarious. No, it's hilarious. We're 20 minutes in and we haven't like hit some of the points that I think are super like fascinating. But that's the cool thing about our friendship though. It's like we could, any group of people that I have on, I could just run for hours of talking about it. But the key thing that we're looking at here is we're learning from each other, and we're learning, and the group is learning a little bit more about me because this is only episode 4 as well. So we'll see how that grows in the further reveal of your tour guide, Kate Curtis. So we'll see how that goes. But tell me some hobbies about Ashely. Like, tell me some hobbies about yourself. Wow, I'd like use like third person there of like, that was a little weird.
I mean, it's your show. Run it how you want.
Yeah, why not?
You're the boss, applesauce. So I will say one of my hobbies is I like to doodle, and I like my handwriting. So I actually have a little, it's not a journal. It's just like a book that I write stuff. I guess that is a journal.
Yeah, it's like a journal. You can call it a diary if you want to.
Ew.
I'm saying it's an option.
Not for me.
Okay.
I'll have a little heart pink lock on this thing. Probably
you could
should.
though. You could.
No, but I like to doodle, and I'll get different ideas from.
There's a heart on that page. You drew a heart on that page. You're close.
Okay, hold on. It is a wave.
But it's a heart wave.
That's in the shape of a heart.
Still a heart.
With birds.
Still a heart.
Okay, I'm gonna not open that page. There's a skull on this page.
Doodling.
I doodled a skull here.
Writing. Yeah. I sidetracked.
But yeah, I actually do that in my spare time, because I actually doodle even when I'm working, because it helps me focus. It helps me calm my mind a bit, because specifically in my business, there are just so many moving parts and different things I have to do that it's sometimes hard for me to focus. So, having this binder and doodling and writing things down, it's always helped me, even doing something simple like this where I'm just drawing lines. That's all I'm doing is drawing lines.
Good old therapy there in that sense for it. It's one of those tools that you have to have in your toolbox. Ooh, excuse me. I had like a little baby burp there. Of a little tool in your toolbox to be able to kind of help going along. Like a coping mechanism in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I really love to do this. And then when I have the time, I'm a terrible cook. I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm a terrible cook. But I can bake. And it's the one thing that my mother and my mother-in-law will ask me to do. Oh, Ashely, are you making the pumpkin bread? Oh, are we going to have snickerdoodle cookies this week? No, because I have stuff to do. Can't make your snickerdoodle cookies today. But it's because it's one of those things that I just like to put on Netflix and really be able to focus on something small, something simple that feels so far away from anything that I have to do. And then when I'm having an emotionally hard time and I don't feel like turning to music, that's another thing that I do is I bake. So of course in college we had cookies all the time.
It's the college years though, so there's no calories, there's nothing involved with it at all when you're in college. It's just, all a part of it.
Yeah, and it comes kind of back to my amazing dating history that I don't regret at all. That I definitely didn't have a boyfriend that compared himself to Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Great impression, by the way. Great impression. And you can quote it word for word.
Oh.
From it's amazing.
That was him to a T. I definitely didn't date someone from Boston, Massachusetts with a very typical Boston name. Oh my gosh. They've all been amazing with great stories, and they all had cookies that I made after our breakups.
That's the evolution of the cookie baking right here. For sure. With that, I know you've said a lot about music, like that. It's been like a therapy thing. It's always something that's there. I have a ton of questions that will hopefully engage your audience of learning from friends here about the music industry and what it means like in your element, because the music industry is such a broad term. It's such a big thing. A lot of people misconstrue it of saying, oh, like I think about this popular music that's in the charts and that's the only person that's the music industry. No, like you hear music everywhere you go. You hear it in advertising. You hear it in backgrounds of movies. You hear like music makes the world go around. It's a universal language here, and there's so many moving parts within that industry.
Amen.
Yeah, so true here for it. But the first thing that I have to introduce here and figure out is, how did you get into music?
Purely by accident.
Purely by accident?
It really was. It was one of those things that there will be moments where I feel like, oh, I need to get away from it. I needed to get out of it when I was younger. And it just wasn't ready to let me go. So the way I got started originally is, of course, being a typical growing up in Georgia girl, is through church and through school. We grew up in an area I would definitely call the Bible Belt. We have, as many churches as we do Waffle Houses.
I have to go a little bit more of churches than Waffle Houses for right now.
I mean, okay, you win this time.
We'll see how many. I'll take that victories because I don't win that often. So I'll take the victory. See how many I can get during this podcast episode.
That was the
one, Cade.
Last one. So there were always opportunities to sing and to be able to find new expression through music. But I think the number one person that made me fully turn my head to music and decide like this is a thing was my mentor, Mr. Forsh.
The man.
I mean,
the legend.
He became such an amazing mentor to me and such a beautiful person to me that he actually officiated my wedding.
He's I mean, you can't say enough about Fred Forsh.
He's just a fantastic influence. And even though I'm sure there were many times where he goes, why am I teaching middle school choir? These girls and guys are crazy. Like, what am I doing with my life?
Says a middle school teacher himself right now. I know that feeling of.
I mean, like, anybody that's in the public teaching field, I just have to give you a huge round of applause because... I mean, now looking at it from an older perspective, I'm just like, gosh, we were insane. How do they do this? But he became
1 minute at a time, not one day, 1 minute at a time.
I couldn't because you're surrounded by like these new prepubescent teenagers that
raging hormones.
Oh my gosh, all the time. And like, I don't know why I'm crying about a gummy bear, but I did. And
everything's out of proportion. That gummy bear is the end of the world.
It really was. But he just every single day had, no matter how frustrating we were, was always inspirational and always brought me hope. And there was one day where he said, Ashely, I want you to come to my congregation. And that's when I realized he was pastor at an AME church. And for the first time, I realized what power there was in music. And I remember I sang This Little Light of Mine, but sang it in just a way that I didn't know that it could sound like that. And I was inspired by the people around me. I was inspired by my mentor. I was inspired about how much my faith really meant to me. And in turn, what having a gift to share with others felt like. Because that's one thing that he would say to me, Mr. Forsh would say, Ashely, you're not the most talented person I've ever met, but you are the most driven musically.
That is a very true statement. If you have your mind on something, you're going to make it happen.
And see, that's really, to this day, is amazing to hear because I don't feel like that.
We are our own worst critics. That's just part of also a little bit of our mental illness, our thought process. I'm going to use that word. Mm-hmm. I hate using that word, mental illness. It's not a great word. But yeah, we get in our own heads and we overthink every situation. We're never good enough in our own minds.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that. But that's where I just decided to stop trying to control. Well, it took me a few years to figure this out, but at one point I just stopped trying to control the direction of my life, and I stopped trying to control things so much and just let life take me. And that's how I ended up in the music field. So I went to university for music. I was a music major, music performance. Voice was my principal instrument. And, of course, going through college, they make you go through the opera training. And it really wasn't for me. But then I found love with that. And when I graduated, I had a bunch of different opportunities. many of them going into a more professional music field, going for my master's degree. But ultimately, I actually chose another path, and that was I really felt the need to get out of the music bubble and really be able to serve and do something that I felt was more important than me. But even when I went over to Scotland, the church I ended up being joining had music professors at the local conservatory.
You can't escape it. Like, it's just going to follow you.
And all I wanted to do was volunteer for the choir. And at one point they were like, who hit that high note? And they said, oh, it's the American in the back. And I'm like 5'1" on a good day. But I was just trying to blend in, and I was trying to hide and, just...
Good luck. We have this issue of standing out wherever we go. It's our personalities. It's just, it's there.
Well, for those that have never heard me sing, I'm a little loud. Oh, okay. Nope.
I had to stop myself.
I'm loud in everything I do, I guess.
You literally just jumped off the scale in terms of like when we're recording here. I just see jump, red. So. Okay.
Well, your recording software just needs to keep up with me then.
Well, I'm the one mixing while recording stuff. I'm like my own full gear here. Like I am, I can't do it all at once, man. I'm not Superman.
I mean, I think you're selling yourself short, but okay. No, she ended up pulling me to the side after one of our rehearsals, and she goes, I teach at the Royal Conservatory up north. Do you mind taking a train up and coming and checking it out? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. So there was a couple days I had off that didn't say anything to my flatmates, didn't say anything to anybody. I literally got in a train, ended up going to the conservatory, and had kind of a mini audition and decided I was going to continue training on the days that I had off. And I don't know. I just kind of realized there was no getting away from it. So I'd be doing my volunteer missionary work, and I'd be in the kitchen, or I'd be, just doing something. And I find myself just singing in what I'm doing. And the people that were at the mission were so funny. If you've ever met anybody from Scotland, first of all, Scotland's a beautiful country, much prettier than London, Paris, or any other place I've ever been. And the people are hysterical, partially because you can't understand anything that they're saying. But I grew up...
learn it over time. You got to adapt to it when you're there.
No, I was really good, though, because I grew up with rednecks. And you can't understand what they're saying either. And it was just so similar. And I was like, oh, my gosh, this is amazing. But they're the funniest people. And they're also the feistiest people. So you have to stay on your toes at all times. And I just was able to keep this lightheartedness about myself in Scotland. And, that's when I found myself singing, and the guys would come in wherever I was, and they would try and pick up and do some sort of harmony. And they're like, yeah. So that was kind of awesome.
So drawing that back in here, you get back from Scotland.
Yeah.
You start kind of pursuing a little bit more within your career, and you do a lot of independent, like, contracting.
Yeah.
A lot of that. Now, how does that work in terms of writing out contracts, being able to protect your rights as an individual as a whole? Like, do you have a lawyer on key for you? A retainer, sorry, I get the word correctly.
No, you're fine. So yes, I do have a lawyer on retainer. And the funny thing is when I started doing contracts, I actually took like a contract writing course to figure out how to do it, because you're going to have to pay an attorney to go through all the finite details when it comes to contracts, because they can do it much quicker. And they'll know the cues to look for much better. But the first contracts I ever did were these 15-page contracts that I wrote myself. And I literally
15 pages. Like for real 15 pages?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the shortest contract I've ever written was maybe 7 pages, but the first one was 15. And it's because you have to go through things like insurance, liability. You know, if I'm walking in a studio that I happen to be working in and I trip and fall, that studio wants to make sure that they're not liable for that, because I have to take care of my own insurance. I have to do, I'm so bad with these like 3-letter statements, but the EMI is on my taxes. And, you know, you just have to cross so many T's and dot so many I's that the first ones I did solely because I stayed in the law library in our downtown area. And I was like a mad woman on a mission to make sure I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to make sure anything that's recorded, like it's mine, it belongs to me. If I want to sell it, I can, because especially when I was younger, I made mistakes, and you're supposed to make mistakes.
Yeah, it's part of life. That's how we grow.
And so I was taken advantage of in a couple different ways in the industry. I don't think anybody gets out unscathed,
No.
certainly.
No. If not, then you're lying. You're not telling the truth, or you're trying to hide something there. You're not going to get out unscathed.
So I messed up quite severely in the past, and I wanted to make sure that would never happen. So the first contract I ever had, I literally, just stayed in a law library, and now and I had an attorney go through it before I had one on retainer. I paid for their advice, and they're like, this is a little psychotic, but
intense.
But it was
the Ashely story.
But it was amazing that I, eventually did start to make a little bit more compensation, so I could have somebody on retainer to go through these, because it doesn't matter if I'm recording something for voice or if I'm actually writing, editing, or arranging music. I have to make sure that, one, my moniker is represented, that I'm getting properly compensated, and that I'm not being overworked, because there's so many musicians that are part of a union to make sure that doesn't happen.
Are you a part of a union?
I am not.
Interesting.
And it's not always the smartest idea. You have to do your research. I just kind of decided the union was not for me, but that instead I would rather have my own people to be like, well, you kind of need to pay Ashely more for this, or I'll have little stipulations in my contract, like if I'm doing a show and they change the music less than 48 hours before the show, my rate just doubled.
Protect yourself.
Yeah. And another great piece of advice I got from the dean of music at my university, and he said, you're a professional now, you don't do anything for free.
That is a true statement that we all have to learn the hard way when it comes to something that you're really good at professionally. Like when you get to that point, the key word professional doesn't, you can't give away your talent, because once you give it once, they're going to expect it more and more, and that word's going to travel very fast.
I think it's that lovely little TikTok social media saying, it costs that much because it takes me hours.
There was I'm going to botch the story here probably, but Picasso was at a cafe drawing a picture, like just doodling around, and he stood up in this napkin and was about to throw it away. Lady walks up to him and goes, oh, can I have that? That's really cool. I'll even pay for it. And he goes, that'll be $30,000. And she goes, what? You were about to throw it away. You just spent 5 minutes on that. He goes, no. I spent 30 years working on this to get here. And that's his first. It's drawing back into the stories, it may seem like you may only be there for 5-10 minutes. You may be asking for $100, $300, $1,000 for you being there for that three minutes, but you're paying for that experience that's built up there. And that, I bet you, that helps you as well, building your catalog for getting your customers and getting more, applying for jobs that may become available, or also your clientele that I know that you also, don't you teach as well?
I do. So teaching actually has now taken up most of my time. I do write.
Welcome to the teaching world. It soaks up your life in a good way.
And it's been phenomenal, honestly. So I still do my side work of editing, arranging, writing, but vocal pedagogy, I have to say is my full-on thing. So pedagogy is just a fancy word meaning to teach. And I really like going on phonics. I really like going over the Pavarotti method. I really like going into vocal health. And I'll have people that literally want to take lessons with me because they got my name or number through somebody else while they were on the road, and they needed to come while they're touring. They need me to, go visit them and do a quick check on their voice, see how they're doing, see what they're doing. And then I'll get professionals all the way to like 4-year-olds that argue with me that I don't know what a quarter note is. And that's why I love teaching, is because you never know what's going to walk in your door. And it's very humbling to have your students trust you.
That is a big one, trust. That's a huge thing.
That's why I say the first few lessons with me, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be excited. You're going to have no idea what you're doing. But it's normally within the second, third, sometimes it'll be a month worth of lessons to where they finally take down that wall. And that's the biggest compliment that you as a student can do for me, your coach, because that means you actually trust me and my crazy process that I take to get your voice sounding the way you want it to sound. And when that happens, when that wall of I'm guarding myself comes down and I get a really gorgeous sound from my student, I actually will pause and I'll thank them.
Yeah, because that's what we look for as a teacher, is that student being successful in reaching their goals.
Yeah.
And all we are there is we're a guide. We're part of the story, but it's them that have to get to that mountaintop. Mm-hmm. We are just that guide. We're a little bit of a playbook along the way for it, but they have to choose to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my ultimate goal is to make you as the student better than I am. And once you are better than I am, I get to pass you to somebody that's better than me.
And that's the sign of a great teacher within itself, is that you want people to leave better than you. Like, that's the whole thing at the end of the day. You're wanting to train the next expert. And that's humbling heavily as well, to realize that from other individuals. Like, oh yeah, like, this person is better than me. And that's okay. That's a good thing.
Well, I mean, you can't have an ego about it, because that's ultimately, what you're doing is I have so many things that I tell my students, and I can't literally fit them within an hour segment, let alone, 30 seconds of talking about it. But I love my students so much.
Oh, I do too. I've had so many over the years, and I still love each and every one of them.
I will remember, the ones that, wouldn't listen to me as much as the ones that did trust me. And I've said to them, look, these lessons are really important because they're individualized. If you can't find yourself relaxing from the way I do things, you need to find somebody else, because there are so amazing teachers out there. I mean, I'm pretty flippin' fabulous.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Aw, I'm smiling now.
As you should.
But it doesn't mean that my methods and my way is going to work for you. And you have to find that one person that's just perfect for you. And the ultimate goal for me is that I inspire the people that I not only teach, but the people that I work with. And, I'm able to unfold something just amazing in the process. And we have these beautiful musical moments that I'm just like, this is the right moment. And this is amazing. And that just culminated in so many different things.
And I have to say this friend speaks my mind. Like as a teacher, I can relate entirely to this, and it's such a wonderful thing to hear it, because it does travel into all fields. When you really get down to it, teaching is something that is universal.
I mean, and especially with the lockdowns that all of us have experienced.
Oh my gosh, it's definitely changed everything.
Music has been one of the fields that just like has that one thing to completely inspire and helps you progressively move forward. I mean, music is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased. True. I'm a little biased.
Just a little. But you're not Chris biased, though.
Oh!
Gotta love it. You gotta put that one in there. We jumped off the scale. Like, that was red the whole way through on that one. That's hilarious. I like to throw that in there when I get the chance to it. But you just said the words here of it's music. I'm going to translate and change into a different words to it here. But music's therapy. Music's universal. Music can be able to drive us forward as a people.
Yeah.
This is where I want us to dive into talking about a little bit of our backgrounds with our struggles with mental illness and that sense to it. I hate using that word, but I can't think of another word right now to use for it, because that's the most recognizable term for people to relate to. But I suffer from PTSD, and I suffer from anxiety and depression. I am medicated in order to help me get through stuff. I go to therapy in order to learn more about myself. I've tried different types of experimental therapy over the years in order to be where I am now in that sense forward. It's not a short sprint. It's a marathon. And each time you go to somewhere new, you have to learn something to add to tools to your toolbox to be able to cope differently, to be able to, because you never know what's going to pop up at any given moment by any means. How has that affected you with your side and your battles within the music? Like, how does that convert for you?
So I'll break it down for your listeners just a little bit. I was diagnosed with PTSD 11 years ago. I was diagnosed with nocturnal pruritus, I believe it is, about 2 years ago. That's basically where you have anxiety to a point where you're physically itching. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing physically wrong, but you're itching, and it happens primarily for me in the evenings. And when I was first diagnosed, I was in a moment of avoiding, because I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't want to know.
We never want to admit that we have a problem. That is, as they say with a lot of recovery programs, the first step is to admitting you have a problem. It's a true statement. You have to admit and say it out loud with somebody. It may not be, you have to first say it to yourself, though.
Yeah. It is true, although those typical sayings just make me want to punch you in your beautiful face. You know,
cliches, they are rough, but they do have some truth to them all the time. Like, all the time to it. It's there.
But, yeah. So I finally sought therapy, and they said, oh, yeah, you do have a few screws loose. Let's get in there and see what's happening. And it wasn't just from like, it stems from one specific incident, but different things added to that.
It all piles up over time.
And it just made it went from bad to worse so quickly. And when I was first diagnosed, I was just trying to avoid everything. And that's when I think music really guided me. And, you know, then I don't know, every time I try and avoid something, music comes in and says, like, this is what's about to happen. Like, when after I had met, you guys had introduced me to my now husband.
You're welcome.
I was actually singing a really gorgeous song called We Are Never Alone in a church in North Georgia, with this beautiful choir behind me. And literally I heard these words of, "Hey, stupid, you asked for some pure and honest love. I literally just gave it to you and you're trying to run away to Scotland. What are you doing?" And that's been my relationship with my faith and with music, is just like, I'll try and avoid things, but through that connection, like, I have to come full force. So now here, years later, I have been told that I will have to be on medication for the rest of my life.
Same here.
That was probably the hardest thing for me to hear, because I wanted some sort of hope to know that one day I don't need it anymore. And that day is never coming.
When one of my therapy sessions, when I had this battle of talking with my therapist about this, and psychologists back and forth of discussion with medication, they gave me this amazing analogy, and I want to share this with you guys because I think it's a really great example of, at any given moment when you're behind a car, you could die at any given moment to it. And imagine being behind the wheel of a car and you're driving 120 miles an hour. Everything is speeding by you so quickly and so fast that you miss out on seeing some of the small things like the flowers, or being able to drive by somebody and wave at them or something on that sort, because you're going so fast. Mm-hmm. The medication, what it's doing is helping you slow down and see those individual flowers, be able to live a little bit of a better life, and be able to extend your life in a safer manner than when you're driving 120 miles an hour, because you're more likely to get hurt or hurt somebody else because you're not able to filter it as easily. And that's when, as soon as I heard that, I was like, wow, okay, I will take my medication. I will stay on my medication. This makes more sense. And that took me years to be able to accept that, because I didn't start going to therapy or accepting that I had an issue till I was forced by work. They put me on medical leave saying that if you don't go to therapy, we're not going to let you come back to work.
That's when you lived out of state, so you didn't have the support system.
No. And that's the part of the reason why we live in Georgia. Katie, my wife, makes this comment all the time of, she never wanted to move to Georgia, but she goes, now we live in Georgia and Kate's on drugs. Like, by drugs, it's like it's prescription drugs in that sense to it. Medication in that sense for it. But yeah, that's always been an ongoing joke. But medication is what's there to help you. Like, that's the point. It's an aid.
Yeah. And
if not abused. That's an issue. Yeah. Do not abuse any medications.
Medications, no.
Yeah,
no.
exactly. Just sit back and follow the rules that are there. They're there for a reason.
Well, and to this day, I'll sneak in. So I have a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Yay! Same here.
And I think it's important for me personally to have both. And I want to go ahead and say I'm not a professional person with PTSD. Like, I don't have a medical background and all this. I'm just saying based on my knowledge and me going through it.
Yeah. In PTSD, one thing I have to throw in here, a lot of people get confused of thinking that it's only for military or something along that kind of branch. It doesn't. It affects any traumatic event that specifically alters your brain functionality.
Now, most people I've met, because I've had to go to like group therapy sessions, most people that I've met are military. Most of them are.
It is the most common and heavily associated with it.
And, you hear their stories, and, because you have to go into like sharing mode, which I hate when you have to share. I hate it.
You're so vulnerable. Like, you're literally, and it's most of the time to people you have no clue who they are.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, after a while, you walk into the room and it just becomes so glib to like go through of, hi, my name's Ashely and I have PTSD because of this reason. This is what happened. And then I went over here and then this happened and it sucks and I'm on medication and it's nice to meet all of you that I'll never see again.
Yeah. But the more you say it, For some people, it gets easier.
Yeah.
It does get a little easier, but some people it gets harder. Like that's the thing. It's not a constant uptick of positive. You're gonna get moments where feel like you're at the top of the game and you're figuring it out, and then all of a sudden, back. There's a new twist, and everything changes.
Yeah, and part of that new twist is with mine specifically. There were things that I had to. Well, not that I had to, that I chose to try and ignore and pretend like it didn't happen. And I'm still going through like this memory therapy, and I have to do these EMDR sessions that say, it's okay for you to acknowledge that this happened. It's okay to know everything that happened, but here's a way we're going to move on from it. And part of what I struggle with is I tried so hard to forget. And now that's immediately what my therapist wants to go into every day.
Our brains try to protect us as much as possible at times that it will block out entire memories here, and entirely to do that. And something I want to say with, like, she's going through these lists, and I've gone through a couple lists of saying that things that we have done, there's not one silver bullet. No. It is a trial and error, keep testing, and you'll find something that does work for you and give you a little bit of help. And it helps eliminate, that's one thing that didn't work for me. Maybe it'll work for me later when I realize and understanding it a little bit better.
Well, I mean, for some people, they love going to the group therapy sessions, and it definitely helps them. For me personally, hated it. Still hate it. I'll do whatever it takes not to have to do those again. Just because for me it didn't help. And I don't have, the mindset to be successful in those atmospheres. And that's another thing, is you have to know that going through therapy and going through the trauma that you have already lived through, you have to give it an opportunity and be willing to let it work.
Yeah. That's the thing, is you have to open up your mind and allow it in that sense for it. You really do.
And you and I aren't hard-headed at all. So
what are you talking about? Hard-headed?
What?
Come on.
No.
Not at all. But it sometimes takes getting to the lowest of points to be acceptant and seek that help and do that. But I'm going to do a small little tangent here. I apologize for this. If you are at a very low point, just remember, there's someone out there that does love you. And if you are gone, you are going to be missed. Your memory is not gone and not wiped away from it. That's for you are important. You may not seem like it to yourself, but you are important in this world to it. So please, if something does come up in your life and you need help, it's okay to ask for help. It's not a weakness by any means. It is one of the biggest superpowers to be able to ask for help. That's what I'm going to say for sure with that for sure. And I'm going to drop a little nugget here. I don't know if I'm going to call it a nugget. That's a weird way. I will admit, I attempted suicide once, and that ran to it. I was not in a good place. I was not in a good state of mind for it. But you never know when your mental health is going to hit you in a way that you may turn in a direction where you feel you need to escape. In that sense for it, that is not the answer when it comes out. Just please remember that. And there's always look for somebody out there to ask for assistance to it. It may not seem like it may not be your best friend. It may be a neighbor. It may be just a random person. But please speak up, say something. Even if it's the smallest of things, people want to help you. We want to see you succeed.
And I will say one thing, and it was advice that I got from my grandfather years ago, and he passed away long before this ever happened. But it's something that he said to me that stuck with me, and it's the one thing that would save my life time and time again, and maybe it will help somebody else. But my grandfather said to me, I don't know why this stuck out after all the great advice he gave me. But he looked at me and said, Ashely, you are not special. There is nothing unique or special about you. There is somebody else in the world going through identically what you are going through. It's not what you go through. It's how you move on from it. And don't you ever think for a second that giving up is an option, because it is one of the most selfish things you can ever do. And he did have a few brothers that, committed suicide. And he just dug it into my mind. Don't you ever do it. It's the most selfish thing you can do. And you can be a brat sometimes, but you're not that horrid. Because suicide, while it is very personal, it's also the most selfish way. You can try and take control of something that is tearing you from the inside out. So don't you dare think for 1 second that you have the right to take your own life, because it's not yours to take. You have no idea how somebody else is going to be able to gain hope or benefit from your experience. And giving up's just never been an option for me. It doesn't mean that I didn't want it at one point, but it's never been an option, because I knew I could never, ever be that selfish. And I could never in my life feel that that was an option for me.
And I'm going to chime back in here real quick on a statement for those that do attempt. And I'm one of those. At times, one thing you have to understand from the other side of the perspective of, for those that have committed and have passed on from it, you don't know the mindset that they were into at that same time. And I know that I sort of remember kind of what took place to it, in my state of mind to it, be almost in a separate state of mind entirely with that. So you can't blame that individual too at the same time. There's two sides to the coin there of that, because you don't know what they're fully experiencing. You can't say that you could have stopped it or they could have stopped it, because sometimes you don't know. So that's why with the conversation on it, there's always two sides to that coin. Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm just speaking from my personal experience in it, but it was...
These are, again, personal perspectives.
Yeah.
We're not experts by any means here.
No.
Just an opinion-based thing.
It was just one of those things, is that I couldn't do it because there was something higher than me that would not let me down. The devil was always in the corner for me, and he was always there in my darkest hours. But somehow in those darkest hours, there was always a little bit of light. No matter how lost you are in your mind, no matter how much the walls are breaking around you, you can find the light. You just have to open your eyes.
That's deep. That's deep when it comes to that. You mentioned your grandfather as being very influential and stuff in your life. What are some people that you would say are influential to you throughout your life? And you said Fred Forrest earlier as well. What are some more that you can just kind of put out here for us?
I will say the women in my family have been very inspirational to me. They're all so different, and they're all crazier than I could ever be able to explain, because they're so different. They're so amazing. But the women in my family have always been very inspirational. But I also have to say that, as stupid as this sounds, something within me was inspirational.
Nice.
And I always felt that everybody is placed on this earth for a reason. I'm not placed on this earth to make some big change, but I'm that little old lady on the bus that says one thing to someone that's going to change the world. I'm not going to change the world, but something that I say just in a little 5-minute spectrum to somebody else will help them change the world. And that's what I think that my purpose is.
As a teacher, that's every day that I walk into a classroom hoping that some word pops up like that as well. So that's impressive with that. I'm going to slowly start wrapping us up here because we're reaching that hour and 5 minute mark here, and I don't want to keep our listeners for so long. It's about having fully established the reputation to be able to last this long with an hour and 5 minutes. But I will say, I will ask, if someone's interested in your music realm on it, is there a way that they can maybe contact you?
Absolutely. So I have my own representation as far as writing, but when it comes to teaching, again, it's just so inspirational. I have an Instagram where I love to share things that my students are doing or accomplishing, from anything from they wrote their very first song or symphony to you just learned a quarter note, that's amazing. And my Instagram would be Miss Ashely's Music.
And I will have the hashtags and stuff in the notes for you to be able to find and see.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome. This always makes it easy for that.
But that is truly what sparks joy. And when there's a beautiful moment, I'm not one of these professional Instagram, YouTube, TikTok users, but when there's something amazing and inspirational, I will pick up my phone and I'll take a quick picture, or I'll want them to see what their fingers look like when they're playing piano, or I want them to be able to appreciate a moment where awesomeness happened. And that's when I post a picture for them or their parents to see, or them and as an adult to be able to appreciate and experience. But you can tell everything is about them. I absolutely love it. And those little moments of inspiration and joy and love. Yeah.
See, that's a true teacher right there, when it's about them. That's the key word there. It's about them, meaning the student as a whole. So as we're coming back, as we're coming to an end, we can just drag on several times with this.
Oh, yeah.
Ashely, I want to thank you for spending this glorious evening with me and having this conversation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think that there'd probably be anybody else that I would do this with, to be honest. And it's very vulnerable and it's very humbling for me to talk about it. And, you know, if you are struggling with anything, I give you love and I give you support, and I want you to know that you're genuinely not alone.
True statements, true words for sure.
Corny, but true.
Yeah. Corny cliches, they're there for a reason. They've existed for so long because of what the value of it really is. So as you all are leaving, thank you for spending your time with me, Cade Curtis, your host on Learning from Friends. You can find me on Facebook. Learning from Friends podcast will come up. You can type in Learning from Friends. I have a website, www.learningfromfriends.com. You can see me an email at Cade, C-A-D-E, at learningfromfriends.com. I haven't gotten to other social medias yet. Maybe eventually I'll get there to Twitter, Instagram, or something along those lines. I'm not super technology driven yet in that realm, but please, if you enjoy this, refer it to a friend, hit like, hit subscribe, share it in any way, form, or fashion. I'd appreciate it deeply. But remember, as you leave out, to let your curiosity fly high. Thank you. This is Cade signing off from Learning from Friends.